I'm Caroline, and many of you in the NACIS audience may know me from past projects, such as co-curating the Tangible Maps exhibit in 2015 in Minneapolis. I work at the Wisconsin Geological and Natural History Survey, where I design maps, mostly geologic maps, and most of my coworkers are geologists and hydrogeologists who study the rocks, sediments, and groundwater of Wisconsin. 2 years ago at the NACIS 2023 conference in Pittsburgh, I attended the map accessibility workshop to start thinking seriously about how I could incorporate accessibility in my work. I entered this workshop thinking that geologic maps may be some of the toughest to bring into compliance with accessibility guidelines, especially with the wild color schemes. But this workshop really turned up my curiosity and led to the seed of a project in the revelation that accessibility is providing access to the information in whatever way someone is able to receive that information. So how else can we give someone access to the information if they can't access through, for example, sight? Ideas grew from there in post-conference conversation toward could we demonstrate it with this map? This was a then unpublished project that I had in progress. I'll introduce it here and I'll come back to it later. You can see it in the map gallery as well. The Quaternary Geology of Wisconsin is a map of the surface deposits of the state. I knew that this broad statewide view of geoscience would be a major resource for educators and classrooms across the state, and generally popular with our map audience, and indeed, following publication this year, it has been by far our most requested and downloaded recent publication. This made it a good candidate for a big effort toward alternative, differently accessed ways to communicate this information. And I received a generous innovation grant from the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension to spend both time and money for 2 years digging into this idea. This was a big help because I was able to go with money in hand to work with collaborators, because I had some ideas, but then I found somebody with better ideas. So I would like to introduce one of my project collaborators, Brandon Biggs, and his accessibility-focused digital map interface called Audiom. Brandon is the CEO of XR Navigation and a PhD candidate at Georgia Tech, and he researches non-visual, digital geographic maps. He is totally blind and is solving a problem that he personally faces in the world. Brandon and his team are developing a web mapping system called Audiom, which is designed to be accessible to low vision and blind people and screen reader users, as Brandon is himself. It's a slippy map, which drops an avatar into the map space, and using the arrow keys, the user can move around the map space as if in a video game. Users can adjust the step size in meters or kilometers, and as the avatar moves around, there are sonic symbols to indicate the map features. So the perception of space comes from a sort of kinesthetic awareness of having moved right or left or up or down and moved a certain number of steps, and the labeled text can be heard by audio or sent to a refreshable display. So here's a short video that I really hope works to demonstrate Audiom.
Version of Audiom allows users to switch between colors and patterns, adjust the border width of features, zoom in up to 200% without squashing interface elements, and customize the interface to be how they want it to be. The non-visual version of Audiom has two modes, a geographic view and a tabular view. The tabular view has a row for each of the features on the map and a column for each of the properties associated with those features. We find a feature of interest,
down arrow, Montana, down arrow, Alaska, down arrow, North Dakota,
and a column of interest,
right arrow, 292,604 North Dakota, row 4 total cases, right arrow, 383,964 North Dakota, row 4 cases per 1 million.
And we heard the pitch that's relative to the other pitches in the column, so we can tell that North Dakota actually has a higher number of cases per 1 million than the other rows. We're going to press enter.
Enter, map.
That'll jump us to the center of North Dakota and switch the statistic on the map to cases per 1 million. Now we're going to use our arrow keys to move around the map 50 kilometers each arrow press, and use a technique called weaving to explore the border of North Dakota.
Right arrow. Down, left, down, left, up, down, left, up, down, left, up, arrow, left, up, right, left, up, right, down, right, down, right, up, right, down, right, arrow, down.
And what we got there was the size and shape of North Dakota, the distance, direction, orientation, and general layout of all the features around and including North Dakota. And we learned that Minnesota has the highest number of cases per 1 million bordering North Dakota, but North Dakota actually has the highest number of cases per 1 million out of all the different features we explored.
Okay. Brandon drives toward this concept phrased in Web Content Accessibility Guidelines as equivalent purpose. So shape, size, relative position, and topological relationships, such as bordering states, are all information expressed here in a non-visual way by way of interaction. So let's return to the geologic map to contemplate equivalent purpose. The Quaternary Geology of Wisconsin paints a state-level portrait of the surface materials, including sand, gravel, silt, clay, and till that were deposited or formed during the most recent geologic period. These form many of the recognizable surface features of today's landscape. For instance, this large area of lake plain sediment, which formed in standing water, remember that, in the footprint of a former glacial lake. It's an expanse of flat, sandy, well-drained soils where we grow lots of vegetables today, and which spans a grouping of the so-called sand counties that are referenced in Aldo Leopold's Sound County Almanac. I think of these geologic interpretations as creating a framework to understand your relative position in the system. Is your community on the well-drained, sandiest, or the most clay-rich, wettest soil? Is it on the steepest or flattest terrain, or on the edge in between? And how does that affect the movement of groundwater and contaminants, the presence of plant communities, or the industries of the area? And likewise, the traditional cartography sets up a framework for understanding this geologic interpretation. So the symbol choices show similarity and difference, establish groupings, show contrast at the edges. Before the 7 map authors even began to draw the line work, we had a discussion about the depiction. What spatial pattern would they want to see from across the room versus what details should resolve as you stand close by? Where is the greatest contrast? How can we delineate broad zones and then subdivide them? So this drove the color groupings. So the geologists present a framework to understand the land, and the visual design presents a framework to understand that. How do we reassign the job that the visual design is doing, and how else might someone perceive these shapes and their distribution within the state and the major groupings and subgroupings? So as we work on all that, we have a work in progress demo of the Audiom version of the Quaternary Geology of Wisconsin. Note that this is a very rough draft and some things don't quite align yet.
This is an Audiom version of the Wisconsin Geological Survey map. I'm going to start by going to Friendship City.
Lake plain sediment, lake, Friendship, county or tribal seat, Interstate 90, highway, and Adams, county.
And what we heard there was the type of sediment that we're on, which is lake plain sediment. The name of the city, which is Friendship, and it's a tribal or county seat. I-90 and Adams County, which are all objects at this location. Now I'm going to open a list of all the objects on the map by pressing M.
Filter objects submenu 2 of 28.
And I'm going to press P
Portage, county.
to get to Portage. And I'm going to press Enter.
Go 2 of 7.
And I could either jump to Portage by pressing Go or
Directions submenu 6.
get directions.
Portage, county, is 2 steps right and 8 steps up. Press D to get updated direct.
And now I'm going to use my arrow keys to move around the map. 4 kilometers each arrow press. And that's because I have my step size set to 4 kilometers. I can set it to whatever I want it to be. I'm going to press the up arrow.
Lake plain sediment, lake, Interstate 94, highway, and Adams, county. Adams, county, and windblown sand. Lake plain sediment. Lake plain. Windblown. Lake plain sediment, lake, and Wood, county.
Now we're in Wood County, and I'm going to get updated directions.
Portage, county, is 2 steps right. Press D to.
And I'm going to go to Portage.
Lake plain sediment, lake, and Portage, county.
Now I'm going to show a few other sounds we have of different sediments.
Dane County and streamlined glacial sediment of the Holy Hill Formation. Interstate 39, Highway. Low relief Hamaki glacial sediment of the Holy Hill Formation. Glacial Hamaki, Dane County, and glacial sediment of the Holy Hill Formation in moraines. Glacial moraine.
This is an...
Okay, let's take a peek under the hood to see how Audiom reads and then renders the map into a screen reader accessed keyboard navigated audible geography. So this table will be converted to JSON, and they call it a rules file. Their schema specifies a rule or a query for any feature matching that query. The name is read out loud and then followed by the category column. The sound can be assigned based on either a unique query or on a type or category value. All of these layers are in my ArcGIS Online. So I'm able to make feature geometry changes or attribute changes as needed, and it pulls from the attributes to do the labels, so I can change those. And as of this summer, XR Navigation is now an Esri partner. So this is very recent, but hopefully the Esri staff in the room can tell them to further develop these features in ArcGIS Online. Here's a peek of the URL that pulls each layer in from AGO. And for now, you need to contact XR Navigation directly to have a map converted, and it is not free. But in the future, they plan to provide an SDK for users to set up their own rules files. And as far as future work, my grant ends this coming summer, next summer. I plan to continue being involved on this theme. You should find Brandon's interviews and webinars on YouTube. There's several. Reach out to Brandon at xrnavigation.io if you want to work on maps with him. Watch Frank Elavsky's 2023 NACIS talk. This is something that kicked me off. And we have a lot of work that we're still doing. We want to continue working on the audio, the sounds, the overall soundscape. There's things like we can have ambient directional sound in Audiom too. Stay tuned. Travis White of NACIS is also helping on this project. I want to close on a few more thoughts. This 2024 resolution from National Federation of the Blind regarding the adoption of inclusive digital maps emphasizes how digital maps are in widespread use on a daily basis and calls on institutions to adopt digital solutions for people to use and also for people to create their own maps and data and to work in fields that require maps and data. Brandon says that up-to-date tactiles are great and blind people definitely want them, but we also must have digital. So this is a yes tactiles and also digital maps. To wrap up, although I am very much trained in visual methods, as many of you are, of course, geographic information is not inherently visual. For instance, I have a sense of direction to navigate my house in the dark. Sounds can be perceived to have a direction and a distance from the listener. Is a thing close or far? Is the path direct or winding? These concepts are not visual. Space, shape, relative size and position, adjacency, and other spatial phenomena are not inherently visual. So it's a very daunting task to think of the mountains of inaccessible content and the amount of work it will take to open up access. But if action is the antidote to despair, instead of being intimidated, maybe try being curious. I'm leaning on my fascination with the nature of geography and how far it goes beyond the visual. So I can take questions.
Thank you for that poignant conclusion. All right, first question.
If we have time.
Yeah, we definitely have time for at least one. And then we'll let people maybe escape to the coffee break and add more. Yeah.
That's a great presentation, Caroline. I think there's an interesting relationship between your talk and Nick's in that, is there a salience metric for the sounds? The sounds were really engaging, but I didn't, when it went to the wind, I didn't quite catch it, but it went to the ice breaking or something, it was really different. So is there a salience metric there to be useful to you?
That's something we're thinking about with that hierarchy Visual hierarchy is so important in the map and grouping. So getting, yeah, I envision where I have a high amount of contrast in the colors, that you'd have a high amount of contrast between the sounds when you encounter that. Yeah, so yep, and then grouping the sounds so they're similar for similar things. That's the vision, at least. And an exciting thing about sound is that there was just a big data set published by some glacier researchers of glaciers melting and meltwater and ice cracking and things like that. And we have yet to explore it because it just came out a few weeks ago, but it's like hours and hours and hours of sound footage that I'm excited to dig into and see if we can use it. So.
Thank you. We are at coffee break time, so I want to encourage this conversation to continue into that time, and would like to also thank all of our presenters.